Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. Tonight we're joined by Sheriff Chuck Jenkins of the Frederick County Sheriff's Department, and we dive right into his long-standing support of the 287G program, cooperation with ICE, and why Frederick County now holds one of the lowest per capita crime rates in all of Maryland. We also address the growing push by liberal county and state leaders to abolish the very program responsible for removing undocumented criminals from our streets. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. I am your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we have a very special guest tonight. We have a returning guest, Sheriff Chuck Jenkins of the Frederick County Sheriff Department. Sheriff Jenkins, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a while since we've been together. Have you geared up for your campaign for re-election? Have you filed for re-election?
So I've geared up. I've got orders of signs and things coming in. I have my paperwork ready to file. I have not filed. I'm looking at sometime in mid-December.
And has anybody else filed, or is the field open right now?
Right now, the only person that has filed is a Republican, a former sheriff's deputy here at this office. He's filed to run against me in the primary.
One of the big issues that has popped up recently that we'd like to ask you about is the changes that are occurring both at the state level, the rhetoric, I should say, the rhetoric that is occurring at both in Annapolis as well as in your county from, I believe, your county executive regarding the 287G program and basically making it not allowed in Maryland anymore. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, this is not a new fight for me. This has been a long-standing fight for years and years, probably 17 or 18 years. But now I think we're to the point it's become the Alamo for law enforcement in this state. I have every Democratic legislator, every senator, every House member, every county executive who's a Democrat lined up against me on this, and it's going to be a huge battle.
What's at stake, Sheriff? Because we know that the 287G program has been very successful, we believe, in lowering the crime in Frederick County, Maryland. What's your position on that?
That's correct, Mark. It's done a tremendous job of keeping the crime rate down, especially violent crime. I believe what's at risk here is the safety of Frederick County, the safety of Marylanders, the safety of every county that right now is 287G. You're going to see an infiltration of criminal elements into this state you've never seen before. Look at what's going on around us in other jurisdictions. That's the beauty of the program. It keeps the criminal gang members out, the transnational gang members. It keeps a lot of the criminal element out of Frederick County, if you will. It sets up a virtual fence around our county from a lot of crime.
So, Sheriff, for our viewers who maybe didn't watch our first episode, could you explain to us what the 287G program is and what level Frederick County Sheriff participates?
Okay, I'm going to go back and just basically for a clear understanding in layperson's terms, it's a section of federal law, the 280 section of federal law that allows for a law enforcement agency or a correctional facility to enter into an agreement with ICE or Department of Homeland Security to have specially trained law enforcement or correctional officers carry out some of the enforcement duties of ICE agents within their facility. Now, there's three different levels of the 287G program. There's the jail-based model, which is what we imply here in Frederick County. This is what goes on here. The jail-based model, which is only within the detention center. Then you have the task force model, which allows specially trained law enforcement deputies out on the street to enforce immigration laws, which there are no programs like that in the state of Maryland. Then you have the warrant service officer model, which is a lesser level of 287G, which right now there are 5 counties in Maryland that have implemented that. You have 3 counties, Frederick County, Harford County, and Cecil County, which have the full 287G programs.
One thing that has been observed is in Montgomery County in particular, the murders are getting down to about 50% of the prior year. And as has been observed by others, is that really the only thing that has changed is that ICE has been more active in Montgomery County and therefore has been proactively removing illegal immigrants that have a warrant out for them already. For you in Frederick County, Your per capita crime rate is extremely low, essentially the lowest in the region, from what I understand. To what degree do you associate your participation in the 287G program to those results?
I think, honestly, our low crime rate is in part due to 287G, not entirely, but in part. I have to be fair about that. But when you look at the criminality of some of the elements we've removed from this county, it's very clear. And let me just throw a few statistics at you over 18 years. So we have served a total of 1,877 detainers on criminals. Okay, a total of 131 criminal gang members, MS-13, 18th Street, Latin Kings, are gone from this county. A total of 79 unaccompanied juveniles who have committed felonies and violent crimes in Frederick County. An awful lot of murder, attempted murder defendants, a lot of child rapists, a lot of sexual assault, a lot of sexual predators, especially of children. So when you look at that number of criminals over that many years that's been removed from Frederick County that won't be released, we're not released back into our county to commit more crimes. You tell me the value. I don't have to tell you.
So, Sheriff, you said that you participate in the jailhouse model, which means that these criminals are being booked into the facility, and then I'm assuming you guys check them for detainers from ICE. Is that how it works?
It goes further than that, Mark. So what happens is every individual in Frederick County that's arrested by every law enforcement agency, whether it's a sheriff's office, Maryland State Police, Frederick City Police, DNR, or if they're sent to jail by the courts, everyone who comes in that facility is booked, processed in our detention center, and they're asked a series of questions. And two of the questions off of the page are, what country are you a citizen of and where were you born? And any answer other than the United States triggers an investigation. This is not based on race or ethnicity, okay? It's every single individual, including you, Mark. If I locked you up tonight, we're going to ask you those same questions. Okay,
right.
So based on those answers, we launch an investigation into an individual's immigration status. We facilitate the process. We prepare paperwork. We run database checks. We have access to every database in the United States and beyond in other countries through ICE, through our ICE program. It's a very effective means of investigation, and we can determine someone's immigration status to include the crimes that may have committed in another country.
If you did lock me up tonight, Sheriff, it would probably be because I broke into the pies early for Thanksgiving. My wife would report me for that crime immediately.
With the 287G program, so what you're describing, if I'm understanding correctly, is that it is being applied solely to individuals who have already committed some kind of an act that has caused them to be arrested. So they've already been arrested, brought into the prison, and that is when they're being looked at. In other words, you're not out on the street just randomly picking individuals up.
You're absolutely correct. You have to be physically arrested, taken into custody, and brought into our detention facility.
So where does the controversy come from, do you think, in regards to that? Because what you're describing seems to be common sense. So what is the controversy surrounding this?
The controversy has become political. It's a false narrative. It's people who really don't understand the program and the value of the program, but mostly politics. Most of the Democrats don't want any enforcement whatsoever because they bow to CASA of Maryland.
CASA of Maryland being an advocacy group for undocumented aliens in Maryland. They're heavily influencing elections for sure.
That's correct. That's correct.
Also, it should be noted that Frederick City is the largest city in the country to allow undocumented immigrants to vote in municipal elections.
Let me throw out something very interesting. So I'll share this piece of information. So when this administration under the new President Trump's new term, about 1 month into the administration, I got a call from the state director of ICE operations. He said, Sheriff, we have our first list of 65 priority criminal targets in the Western Maryland region. Western Maryland region is Frederick County, Washington County, Allegheny, and Garrett counties. Obviously, Frederick County is the most populous, okay? He said, do you want to take a guess on how many of those priority targets are in Frederick County? I said, tell me. He said 2. Because of what you've been doing in Frederick County over 18 years, those criminal targets, those priorities that we're looking for aren't in your county. That says it all to me. That tells the tale.
So
Very-
basically, ICE doesn't have to do any sweeps because those criminals have already identified themselves through the criminal process of committing crimes and have already been deported.
In many cases, yes. In many cases, you're simply not seeing the ICE raids here in Frederick County because we've already done their job by cooperating over the 17 or 18 years.
What you are bringing up brings to mind a conversation I had with a friend who literally just over this past weekend spent some time in Charlotte, North Carolina, because he is considering moving and his family moving to Charlotte. And during the time that he was there, the 24 hours that he spent there, he was talking to individuals, and they were talking about how ICE had just recently come into the city and it was causing quite an uproar, and it had already started to quiet down somewhat. In other words, what you're saying, it fits with what you're saying, that because you have proactively cooperated and participated with the 287, the no problems, quote unquote, built up. There wasn't a buildup of criminals of a certain criminal group. You actually had individuals deported. So therefore, ICE doesn't even need to come into Frederick County, which would appear to say that it makes it safer for the community overall.
It really does. You're absolutely right on point there. So we take the criminals who we've identified as being in this country illegally, and eventually we turn them over to ICE in our jail. We don't release them back onto the street where ICE has to hunt them down again in our communities. It becomes an unsafe situation for the person they're looking for the ICE agents, for the community in general. It's a much safer way to do it. And I have to tell you that tells the story right there. They're not hunting people down in Frederick County because we've already done their job. Here's the other part of that. The risk is all these politicians, they think they're protecting the immigrant communities. Well, what's going on right now when ICE does come in to look for somebody? Well, if there happens to be somebody standing around that's in the wrong place at the wrong time, that person is going with a criminal. They made that pretty clear.
One of the critics, Jessica Fitzwater, she's a county executive. So her main argument is that the undocumented community will stop cooperating with law enforcement if they believe it could lead to them being deported. What's your take on that?
Absolutely false. It's political rhetoric. It's the argument they always make because they're opposed to any enforcement whatsoever. Listen, Frederick City Police Department, Frederick County Sheriff's Office, we receive calls all the time from individuals in the immigrant community who are victims of crime. And I'll tell you there's another argument to be made here. I often sign U visas, okay, which is a protection for crime and crime witnesses that allow them to get immigration status based on the fact they're a victim of a crime and they've been cooperative. So that exists, and I do that a fair amount. I'll sign U visa forms. Hopefully they get their citizenship.
So a follow-up question for that. So what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, is because they're a victim of a crime or a witness to a crime, they actually get immigration status because of the paperwork that you're signing and allows them to do that.
They can, yes. So they send me the forms. I verify the fact through our reporting systems. They are either a victim or a cooperating witness in some criminal case. And I fill out this affidavit. I sign the paperwork. I send it in. It doesn't automatically mean they'll get status, but it'll help them work toward getting that immigration status.
So in regards to that, because it is something that I have heard a number of times fairly consistently, is actually that criticism, which is that the immigrant community, particularly the Hispanic community, does not report crimes because of that fear. So if you could just clarify that a bit. So let's say that I was an illegal immigrant, a crime is committed against me, I call the police, a police officer arrives. What would you say is the process that's going to unfold?
So we'll take the incident report. We'll take the police report of the crime. We'll investigate the crime like we would for anybody else. And eventually, potentially we would make an arrest, maybe not. Oftentimes we will. That the case will be moved forward and prosecuted and adjudicated. At the end of the day, that crime victim or a witness to that crime can apply for legal citizenship, and then the U visa process will help them move forward toward that. It's not automatic, but it's part of the process.
So just to clarify, let's say the officer determines fairly quickly that I am indeed an illegal immigrant. Am I going to be detained? I mean, assuming, of course, that I don't have any criminal record. Obviously, the 287G program is is focusing on legal immigrants who have committed crimes. So assuming that I have no criminal record, am I going to be detained?
Not at all. You're a crime victim. We take the report of you as a crime victim. You are not going to be detained whatsoever. We won't even ask the question, are you in the country illegally? We don't care. That's not how we police.
There is a big misinformation campaign going on, mostly from the blue side of the aisle, progressives and Democrats, who are basically trying to instill even more fear into the undocumented immigrant community, that, you know, police are not their friends and that this program is going to hurt them long term. It's really good for you to put it on the table that, in fact, the opposite is true.
It really is. It's a false narrative. It's a political rhetoric that only hurts the immigrant community, really. Listen, Mark, I've been making these arguments for 18 years now. I've been fighting the fight, and I really believe this year everything's on the line. The Senate President Bill Ferguson has said he's going to bring this bill forward. It's driven by our local Senator Karen Lewis Young, who absolutely, this woman has no understanding. She doesn't care about the citizens of Frederick County. She is more concerned about the people in this country illegally. She's dead wrong on this. And honestly, I will work against her in this election as hard as I'm working to get elected.
And I think you put it in a nutshell there, Sheriff Jenkins. You either, and I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you're putting the needs of people not born in this country over the rights of American citizens, then you're just flat out wrong.
You are wrong. You absolutely are. But again, this is going to be, in my mind, the biggest fight, the biggest battle in an upcoming election year. And it's not only Senator Young, it's every Democrat on the Frederick County delegation. It's every Democrat in the House in Annapolis. It's every Democrat senator. They're lining up to vote for this. And I'm trying to mobilize every sheriff in the state of Maryland. Now, obviously, not every sheriff will stand up. They know in their heart it's right, but they won't stand up to back it.
And Sheriff, I agree with you completely when you say that this is kind of a watershed moment, one of those times where one path or another is going to be determined, because, you know, I can see where in my own family, I do have a large branch of my family that are Hispanic immigrants, and you know, hearing the things that are being said and the rumors that are abounding, it is very intense. It is getting so intense. It reminds me of the buildup starting from 2014, 2013 of the BLM, Black Lives Matter movement that led to those anti-cop riots that, once things were fulfilled in those riots in 2015 and 2016, and the increase in crime that occurred in Black communities, it was 70-80% for the increase in violent crimes. And it was because of obviously, in hindsight, 100%, lies, propaganda, incorrect rhetoric. And I'm starting to see that same buildup starting to occur within the immigrant community around 587G. And it concerns me quite a bit, because I don't want anyone I care about to be subjected to the same results that occurred to the African-American community over the past decade plus.
If a bill passes outlawing 287G, you will see ICE coming into the state of Maryland, and every single county, every single large city. They're going to sweep through it like gangbusters. And again, there's going to be so many collateral and unattended arrests, it's going to really destroy some of these communities. I say implement the program in every jail. Let the criminals who are arrested and determined to be in the country illegally, turn them over to ICE. And I guarantee you it'd be a much safer entirely throughout the state of Maryland, much safer for every county, and much safer for the immigrant community. It's the immigrant community who is mostly victimized by criminals who are in the country illegally.
One thing that also our viewers should be aware of, Sheriff Jenkins, is that you're an elected official. So that gives you, in my mind, a lot more autonomy to enforce the law the way you see it, as opposed to having to work at the behest of a deep blue county or city government. How do you feel about that?
Again, you're absolutely correct. You're on point. And that's why, again, they want me out of this seat as sheriff in Frederick County, because this is what I believe on. This is what I've stood on. It's a part of the success of this agency. Okay. Like I said, our great stats are in part due to this program. So I stand on the merits. I stand on the success. And again, every Democrat wants me out. That's no secret.
It's interesting to me that across the board, every sheriff that's been elected in these counties supports the 287G program, and every police chief who's been appointed allegedly does not. I think that's a telling statistic.
That sure is. So I'll give you an example. So last year, when the sheriffs mobilized and went to Annapolis and did a big press conference about the success of the 287G program, and we fought against this bill. We actually kept 287G alive. I had a particular sheriff of a Maryland county come up to me and said, "Sheriff, patted me on the back. I support everything you're doing. I think it's the right thing to do, but I can't stand up and say that." That's because he's more concerned about keeping his job than he is about the safety of the citizens of his county.
And for our viewers, many police chiefs and sheriffs are appointed by the duly elected government officials, and they tend to reflect the fact that job security becomes a watchword as opposed to actually enforcing the law. You're not subject to that same restriction, which I really do appreciate, Sheriff Jenkins. You've led the way in this particular topic, and I think the common sense is going to win you the day at the election.
Well, I hope so. And again, it's truly believing for the best interest of the citizens here. It's been a great program. Let me bring up one other point. So about a month ago, I hosted a meeting with 9 Maryland senators and their chiefs of staff at our jail. I took the time to explain the 287G program. We presented a PowerPoint. We took them through the process. We walked them through central booking, through the ICE processing area. We answered every single question they had. And as I stood there in front of that group of senators, I watched them. I listened to their questions. I watched their eyes, their emotions. And I sensed that every single one of those senators believed in their hearts this was the right thing to do, okay, for public safety. But they'll never admit it because politically they can't. Karen Lewis Young sat in that room. After they left, it started to ramp up. And again, I listened to their questions. I answered every question for them. And when they walked out of the room, I felt they truly somehow believed in the program as the right thing. But here we go. They're going to ramp this up because it's politics.
And that is what is so concerning, is that when you look at the history of these things, is that they don't turn around on their own. In other words, when there is a zeitgeist, something in the public conscience that pushes in a certain direction, even when things get worse, they don't necessarily just correct on their own. And what I mean by that is that, again, going back to the example of what happened with the BLM riots, et cetera, is that in 2015, when they occurred, I'm going to use Chicago as the example in this case, but you can take this and take it across the country. But in 2015, there were the riots, there was that increase in crime. And the FBI has a public database to talk about, shows how crime goes up or down in any community. And 2 years later, the African-American community in Chicago went to the mayor's house and protested the increase in crime. And what can you do? Of course, what the reason for the increase in crime is police stopped policing at the request of the community. Now, 10 years later, the situation is so much worse. And just in a press conference that the current mayor of Chicago gave just a couple days ago, he said, and I quote, "Jails and incarceration law enforcement is a sickness that has not led to safe communities." So we've had more than a decade now where individuals in these communities have been suffering terribly. And yet the rhetoric and the rules, like you said, the politicians may know, yet the rhetoric and the rules continue to get worse, and the suffering in the communities continues to grow and get prolonged, and then it becomes intergenerational. And that is my great fear of what could possibly be happening from the way politicians are reacting to this issue now.
Anybody who is honest with themselves has learned and knows that soft on crime does not work. It hasn't worked. It won't work. Okay. Just like this program, anybody who really, truly is honest with themselves has to believe this program works. God forbid it goes away. But if it does, I guarantee you're going to see transnational criminal gangs infiltrate this county like you've never seen before, out of neighboring Montgomery and PG counties and Loudoun County. Again, they don't come here now because they know if they're locked up, if they get in trouble, they get arrested, physically arrested, locked up. Under this administration, they are gone back to their countries of origin. Absolutely no doubt about it.
Do you have the statistics handy, Sheriff Jenkins, about how much lower crime is in Frederick County than in our neighboring counties?
What I can tell you is this, not particularly neighboring counties, but what I can tell you is this. Our crimes per capita per 1,000 people are well under one half of the national average of a similar size. That's huge. In the past couple of years, the way stats are collected and reported are different than they were just several years ago. We've gotten away from the Part 1, Part 2 crimes, the UCR index, to another system. So it's really hard to compare, but I guarantee you, I know I track the per capita crimes, and we are well under one half of the national average.
Congratulations, Sheriff Jenkins. You've worked hard for the county, and it's very visible in the crime rates.
You know, Mark, I term this Frederick County as a land of pleasant living, and we really are. I wish people hated it, recognized it, as lucky as we are here in Frederick County. And it's not because of me. It's because what my men and women do. It's because of the people that work and live in this county. We've got a great community here. Let's keep it that way.
We agree 100%. I'm from Boston, Sheriff. I live here in Frederick County. I decided to live here, and I've never regretted it. It's a wonderful place to live. And as you said, the men and women of the Frederick County Sheriff's Department make it so much better for the citizens. You've got a great group of professional people that work for you.
I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate the thoughts there.
Thank you for joining us. This has been a wonderful conversation. Everyone in the community gets to benefit from that. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And I hope your listeners really jump on board and reach out to their delegates, their senators, and push them to drop this silliness of eliminating 287G.
We will absolutely put all the links in our comment section when we post this on Mid-Maryland Votes. But thank you, Sheriff Jenkins, for being with us. We think you're doing a bang-up job, and we're very happy with you. Good luck to you in the upcoming election, and please come on back and talk with us again sometime soon.
I sure will. Thank you, Mark.
This has been Mark Flynn with Mid-Maryland Votes. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we thank again Sheriff Chuck Jenkins of the Frederick County Sheriff's Department. If you like what you've seen, please like it, share it, and follow us on Facebook and YouTube, and share it with a friend. If you didn't like it, share it with an enemy. Thanks for coming out. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes. That was Sheriff Chuck Jenkins on Mid-Maryland Votes, a clear defense of law enforcement, public safety, and policies that have kept Frederick County among the safest in the state. These are the conversations shaping Maryland's future. If you love the episode, share it with a friend. If you hated it, share it with an enemy. We're equal opportunity entertainment. Like, follow, and share for more content like this on Facebook and YouTube, and we will see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes.